of other schools began utilizing technology for schoolwork on snow days so that we wouldn't have to make up the days at the end of the year. What are your thoughts on e-learning days?
I think using a few e-learning days is good, but there's many students in our district that do not have internet access. And if we close school due to bad weather, we should not expect students or their parents to drive to get internet access for their students. Our school should supply Wi-Fi units to all students without internet access if we expect them to be doing their homework at home. Thank you.
I look at this question in three ways. I look at it as a parent, as somebody who teaches and utilizes technology in teaching, and I look at it as somebody who is really immersed in understanding development. And from each of those perspectives, I wholeheartedly support e-learning days. I believe it's the right thing, it's on the right track, I believe it's creative and it's innovative. I think it works. At the same time, like anything new, there's kinks, there's weaknesses. And I think we need to be a little more aggressive on working through those things. We need to do a better job again of communicating with the community, communicating with our parents. For example, the assumption often is an e-learning day means the teacher gets an extra day off. But the truth is, the extra work that the teacher has to put in to make the e-learning day happen is often not seen. And so how do we provide adequate support for that? Work out the kinks, the questions about internet and what's working and what's not. What are the challenges? And I think we need to open up the communication channels a little more aggressively there so that we can address those weaknesses, so that we can really support this and utilize this great tool. Because when we had a winter like we did last winter, my wife teaches at Carroll High School. She had an extra hour for weeks. She had an extra week. Almost missed my doctoral graduation, and she will tell you that was ineffective and miserable. She was miserable, therefore we were miserable, and it didn't work. And so I was thankful. I was thankful that we had the e-learning days in Garrett, and I think it works. But there's some kinks, and I think in order to make sure we have continued support for that, we've got to work out those kinks and continue to improve that so that we don't lose a good opportunity.
I support the e-learning days also, simply for the fact that it keeps kids off the road in dangerous weather. We've got a tremendous tool here. Why not use it? If my wife or my children are at home, safe and sound, on an e-learning day, I'd much rather have that than have them out, endangering their lives actually on the road. We can get that learning done right there on that same day. There's no reason we shouldn't use that. There's some schools that have e-learning all the time, and I am not in favor of that, total online, because I still think that the teacher-student relationship is the most important thing that we've got going. I mean, if that teacher doesn't build a relationship with a student, that student's not going to have the most efficient and effective kind of learning. But on days where the weather is dangerous, I fully support the e-learning.
This came before the board last year. I know Mrs. Weaver came and she said, hey, we have this opportunity. We'd like to take advantage of it. And with a little bit of skepticism, like I see a lot of things, a little skeptical when, don't know how it's going to work, I asked Mrs. Weaver to report back to the board and let us know what kind of feedback you got. Was it working? What kinks do we need to work out? And not only Mrs. Weaver, but several teachers came back and said it was great. The kids could email. They got their assignments in on time. And the advantages of it are so great. Not having to stay an extra hour after school as some corporations did, or not making up in June, or days where, the school year's over anyway. Everybody's kind of ready for summer break, so there's not much going on in school. But the advantages were great, and I really think it's a great idea and a great use of the technology that we have, and I fully support e-learning.
I'm not going to be a popular guy again. I don't like e-learning days. I don't like 2-hour delays. I don't like long convocations. We invest a lot of money in the teachers, in the school system, in the buildings. They're heated, they're air conditioned. I want the bang for my buck. I was a kid once. I know that's going to be hard for a lot of you to believe, but when we would have been off school and they would have said we had an e-learning day, I would have went into school the next day and said, teacher, my internet wasn't working. while I had spent the whole day before being pulled around on a Coca-Cola sign in the snow having fun. I just don't like it.
At the moment, Garrett Kaiser Butler schools have a modified balanced calendar. However, many other schools in Indiana are moving to year-round schooling. What are your views on year-round schooling, and do you think this is something that our school district should consider? Dr. Carlson, you may go first.
You know, I am not at this moment in favor of year-round schooling. I may even be a little bit cynical, perhaps selfishly so, about our modified calendar even. For me, we've got to make decisions. The difference between making a decision about what's best for students a lot of times and what's a trend is research and seeing some proven success. And I think this is one of those things for me, I've not seen really good research or really good proven success or failure as to whether or not this works. And so to just do it because a lot of other schools in Indiana are doing it, that really isn't a good enough reason for me, to be honest with you, especially with something so significant. And when we make these decisions, we again got to look at the research, we've got to look at models to see where it's succeeded and failed and how and why. But something that big, we've got to bring the stakeholders to the table. That's not a school board decision, that's a community conversation. Talking with parents, engaging the community, talking honestly with staff in a way where they feel like they can be honest and express themselves, how they feel about this, both personally and professionally, and what's best for students. And sometimes those things are in conflict. But I believe we can do what's best for kids, support our teachers, staff, and administration, engage our parents, and serve our community, including good stewardship of tax dollars. We can do all that at the same time. Now, sometimes we have to make a difficult decision, and some of those groups are not going to be happy. But with something this big, we've got to have the conversation. And it's got to be based in good data, good experience for both. Because right now, I just don't see it. I'm always open to considering anything, especially if we've got good information. But at this time, I'm not real excited about that idea.
I'm also not in favor of that at the present time, because I haven't seen anything that says that student learning is improved with these new modified schedule or the year-round school. I think they need a break. I mean, the teachers and the students need a little bit more of an extended break. I think it's good for the families. And I agree that the conversation needs to be with the whole community. And we shouldn't just do it to be doing it or doing it because another local school is doing it. This is one of those issues that being out on the edge and just doing something, I don't agree with.
So I will say, I'm not for the year-round calendar, but Dr. Weimer and I were on the committee for the balanced calendar, and we did surveys. We surveyed parents. We sent surveys out to every parent at school. We surveyed all the teachers, and if I remember right, the balanced calendar had 85% favorable from the teachers. And I think the parents were probably to 70, and I know some of the concerns are daycare, and that's a big concern that we took into consideration, but we felt it was best for our students to have the fall break right after the first semester, and we do the 2 weeks at Christmas, so that we're done with our second semester or second term. At the time when we set the calendar, we put in 2 weeks for the spring break because we didn't know we had e-learning at the time. So now we have 2 weeks in the spring. We can't change the calendar because we won't be using those days for snow days. Unless there's no internet, then of course we'll have to make up the days. But that was how the balanced calendar came about. There was a lot of input from the citizens, the administration, the staff, but I don't think anybody was in favor at that time of the year-round calendar.
Why too don't, I think if we make a decision on that, that needs to be a community decision. You know, years ago, the school calendar was set up primarily for kids that worked on the farm because the majority of them did work on the farm. Spring and fall was set. You didn't start school, you didn't start school until in the fall because you had crops to come in. You got out of school earlier in the spring because you had crops to plant. Obviously, that's changed, okay? But just to make a change for the sake of change, I don't know. And you're not going to get everybody in the community to agree, Because some people like winter vacations, some people like summer vacations, you know, so it's one of those things that really does need to have a little more, a lot of input, not just from a school board or from teachers. It needs to have input from the community, specifically from the parents of the kids, because they're the ones that have to handle, you know, where are those kids when they aren't in school? They have to make arrangements for that. You know, so I truly believe that. This really doesn't kind of focus on that, but it's a decision that I made on a school board years ago. We went to the 4-block schedule, okay? You know what? It seemed great at that time. I don't know. Now we're having some, I think we're having maybe some discussions, that we're having some second thoughts about that, because some of these kids are going for 2 years without math before they go to college. You know, they're forgetting a lot of things in that. And it may be beneficial to go back to a 6 or 7 block day. It sounded real good at the time, but in hindsight now, maybe it doesn't sound as good. You know, so there's just things that need to maybe be thought through just a little bit more. Thank you.
I don't agree with year-round school either. I feel students and staff both need a break. I know when I was a kid, not starting until after Labor Day and getting out before Memorial Day was great. And right now, our students, they have a shortened summer already, and